Hello, you're very welcome to another edition of the JMac podcast. I'm John Man, and of course, this podcast is sponsored by OrgoRetro.com and Attack Sport. Using my promo code JMac podcast to get 15% off on OrgoRetro.com and get the best skins, gloves, and equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack minded. And here this evening, we are here to talk with Kerry Tyrone All-Ireland semi-final that took place on Saturday at Croke Park, and it was an absolutely thrilling game of football. So tonight, I'm joined by former Tyrone player Conor Gormley, former Leitrim footballer Gary Reynolds, and former Wicklow footballer John McGrath. So we'll start off with Mr. Gormley. You're happy this week?
Hi, happy camper. Surely it's nice to get one over on the old rivals from Kerry, so looking forward now to the Ireland finals. Always a nice place to be. It's good form.
It definitely is, Conor. It definitely is. And how are you keeping, guys?
Good, John. Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, 3-2 great game at the weekend, so enjoyed it now.
Definitely. And Mr. McGrath, how are you keeping?
Yeah, good after that. Now is two great semi-finals run up now and prepares nicely for a final as well. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, definitely. It shakes it up a lot now, I must say. So we were treated to a spectacular game Saturday evening, lads. It went to extra time. It had it all. Tyrone, series resolved. Kerry were strong favourites going in, but Tyrone completely right everything wrong for that. They were absolutely remarkable. The score ended up Kerry 22 points, Tyrone 3-14 after extra time. So a terrific game of football. And where do you really start with this game, Conor Gormley?
It's hard to know, really. Where do you start? Just Tyrone, probably their hunger, the desire, the work it probably just maybe took Kerry by surprise, and probably it was a wee bit of a throwback maybe to the Naughties team, maybe the way that they got Kerry and really went at it, So great to see from a Tyrone point of view. Was his last number of years they've been criticised for the defensive football and the sitting back and all that they've been doing. So it was really sort of pleasing today to see them really step out of that and really go at Kerry and really just stamp the authority in the game and the work rate and the ferocity of their tackling. And there was men lying everywhere and jerseys never ripped and black yards and fouls all over the place. It just was great from a Tyrone point of view to see all that going on,
Yeah, absolutely, Conor. And I suppose, did the Tyrone gents, did they kind of draw inspiration from the likes of 03, 05 and 08 when you did get them terrific wins against Kerry? Was it even a case of even drawing inspiration from them type of games, Conor?
Maybe it could have been. I suppose you have to give credit maybe then to the management team of Dooher and Logan there and on that. Maybe I think, if anybody knows Brian Dooher or even seen him play, that is sort of his style of football, I'd imagine, and that's the way he wanted to play football, and it just showed on Saturday what his game plan worked at T. Probably a lot of the matchups got right as well, which was key in that game as well. Like Conor Myler on Paddy Clifford had an exceptional game. Really curtailed his influence. So we things went our way, and maybe Kerry butchering a chance or two maybe helped as well. So they rode their luck definitely a long way, but sometimes you need that wee bit of luck to get there, and thankfully it was Tyrone's way on Saturday past.
Definitely. What about yourself, guys? A terrific game on Saturday.
Brilliant game. Yeah. I heard some people saying sometimes the quality was down, but I think the quality was down because the intensity was so high from Tyrone and from Kerry as well, that those balls spilling, as Conor said, those black cards, those late hits, there was everything kind of thrown in there, and I think it was just everybody going at 100 mile an hour. So I think maybe Kerry's execution at times wasn't great, but again, to go back to my previous point, it wasn't great because there was generally a couple of Tyrone men hanging out with them. So, you think about the goal chances that Conor mentioned that Kerry botched. I think the square ball, Stephen O'Brien, Sean O'Shea would probably, I think with Sean O'Shea give it in. Normally he'd probably bury that himself, and then the other one he hopped across to Clifford. He actually ended up being a bit of a hospital pass. I think that's when Morgan got a fist to it, and I think that's when Clifford actually got injured. Normally they're in the back of the net, but I think that was down to kind of the intensity Tyrone brought to the game. Just Kerry weren't able to execute as normally they are able to. So brilliant game of football. As John says, we got two great semi-finals. So treated, and I think, to be fair, on both ends, the best teams come out in both of them as well.
I suppose, guys, what impressed you, before we do jump into the game after I asked John, but what impressed you most about nearly the Tyrone kind of performance? Because everyone thought going into the game Cove was going to take a big part to play in it, and obviously we'll talk about Sean Cavan and Pat's plans in the debate, and we'll get into it as well. But Gary, what impressed you most about Tyrone?
Yeah, I think it was just the fitness levels, the intensity they brought to the game, John. And I think it wasn't just, Conor was saying there, the teams of the noughties, that was 100% correctly, and they were very well set up tactically as well in the noughties. But I was very impressed with Tyrone's kick out, very impressed with the way they went about business. And there was no real kind of, there was no real shite going on. Not a whole pile of shite going on off the ball either. They were focused on the job. Myler was back picking up Clifford. They had a real plan for them. Morgan's kickouts were brilliant as well, and I just think they caught Kerry on the hop. I know you can't catch anyone on the hop in an Ireland semi-final really, but I don't think Kerry were expecting that. And then in the build up to the game, everyone was talking about how would Tyrone be affected by the COVID, and was there certain lads going to be out? Would Matty Donnelly, would Peter Hart, and these boys be going at full tilt? But I think both of the boys showed, and Conor's ears were probably burning over the weekend, because I think his block and Peter Hart's block was being compared a good bit, and I think Peter Hart's block just, I think, epitomised everything about Tyrone the other day. They were just, but they weren't, going around though. Sometimes we can be and Conor can tell me to feck off, but sometimes we'll be saying about the old Ulster antics and things like that. But the Tyrone had none of that. They were just fully focused on the job, and they got it done.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to know which block was actually better, and I know Conor's here today, but I nearly would give Conor's the nudge just for the importance of the game. It was an All-Ireland at the end of it all, but two terrific blocks, and Peter Hart, he's been around the block.
Exceptional one, yeah.
Oh, absolutely top class. And what about yourself, Mr. McGrath? Kerry Tyrone Saturday?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I think just the intensity Tyrone brought was just at a different level that we really haven't seen all year from any team. They weren't the finished article just yet either. They have a lot of things to work on, I'm sure, going into a final. But the intensity they brought, they just nullified Kerry in every area, really. And the one thing I just can't stop thinking about is Peter Keane after that league game, when he said, if you take away the goals, there wasn't much between teams. And I'm sure I'll come back to haunt him, because at the weekend there, if you take away the goals, Kerry win quite easily. Tyrone they hooked their 3 chances. They were brilliant. While Kerry, just in front of the goals, they couldn't make it work at all, and they forced it. And it comes down to it. That's just the difference between it now as well. It was 23 scores to 15 scores or 12 or 14 scores, is it? To 17 scores. So it's the difference between teams. In the end of it, the intensity levels plus the goals just separates teams there.
Definitely does. I suppose kind of looking on from the team sheet here, John, you did kind of look at the forward line to really cause the damage. So you're looking at the likes of Jeremy O'Connor, Sean O'Shea, Stephen O'Brien, David Clifford, Paul Keeney, and Paddy Clifford. But grand scheme of things, Tommy Walsh came on as well, John. Unfortunately, didn't really make much of an impact. Paul Keeney, a bit of an underperformance as well. And we were saying off air, you'd want to be getting a lot more from them boys. Yeah,
definitely. I think what we've seen all year, it was Kerry really clicking. They were right throughout their forward line. It wasn't just one guy showing up here and there throughout the league or earlier rounds of the championship. They all seemed to be clicking, and they were really fluid. And that's what we want to see from Kerry year in, year out, because we know that's just the class to have. But it's credit to Tyrone. They got their matchup spot on, and they put an end to that. Clifford showed up on the day, even though he still, I think McNamee can be fairly happy as well with how he got on. But yeah, Clifford was exceptional. Outside of that, O'Shea didn't get to the levels that we expect him to, even though I still think he did well, but not to the levels that we really have seen earlier in the year. Gainey just wasn't at it. Stephen O'Brien just really has kind of gone off the boil there in the last couple of years, really. So they struggled up top. But I have to give huge credit as well to Kerry. I thought midfield, they were very good. I thought for Tyrone's kickouts, they were brilliant. They're breaking ball, they mopped up. Defensively, on their individual battles defensively, I thought they were brilliant. Thomas Sullivan, Jason Foley, Paul Murphy, they were brilliant. Gavin White, even though he kind of had a little bit of a free roll, because McGeary was dropping quite a lot, that I still just thought they were brilliant individually. But their decision making when it came to a collective defensive unit really let them down, and that first goal for Tyrone really epitomised that. They were coming bearing down on goal, bearing coming through, and any kind of clued in defence there would have said let's step off and let Niall Sludden clip it over the bar, or try force his way to goal. But if you really look at that goal over and over again, Mike Breen gets wrong-footed, and his efforts to get back, and it was only to make up maybe 3 or 4 yards, was really, really poor. David Moran was the one trotting back through the centre as well. And the fact the two of them didn't really make a press, they put Paul Murphy under fierce pressure to press out or stay with McKenna. And unfortunately, he pressed out and just a slip past. Like, so, as a collective unit defensively, they have a lot to work on. But still, they have a lot of credit. Like, they were a kick of ball away from being in the Ireland final as well. Like, so, Tyrone just with their intensity, they just shaded it through.
They definitely did, John. They definitely did. Well, let's get into the game, lads. I suppose, Conor, as you were saying, you don't really know where to start with it, but from minute 1 onwards, it was really tight. I'd say for the first water break, it was really nip and tuck. Mr. Clifford was swinging that left boot in the first 20 minutes. So got some great scores. But Rhoda McNee was flying out with the ball. Tyrone were utilising the forwards really well. Matty Donnelly, Peter Hart was like moving excellently. So, the first couple of minutes, Conor, it was really either team's to call.
I probably definitely was nip and tuck, as you say. What sort of set the tone for me was Frank Burns had hit somebody, I think it might have been Darmonin, along the sideline, at a shoulder and put it over the sideline, and just sort of that set the tone for me. Right, Tyrone's going to mean business today. That's going to show the intensity, and really stepped forward from that and worked on that. Again with Clifford, Clifford's just one of the exceptional players that's just going to score 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 points on you, no matter what nearly you do. And as you say, McNamee had a fairly good enough game on him and got on a lot of ball as well and they're out. But just, I think the sort of second man tackle or third man tackle coming in from Tyrone was evident to see early on. So say Clifford was on the ball, McNamee was tackling. There was a third man or second man in to help tackle. They weren't fouling really too much. So I thought that's really set the tone early from Tyrone. They weren't just happy enough to say, my man's way out there, I'm not bothered about him, I'm backing and helping out and making it hard for the Kerry forwards. Didn't always work all the time, but you could see that from early doors, that's what was Tyrone's plan, and as I said earlier on, that continued on right through the game, and it was just showed the level of fitness and the level of desire they have for work rate, so, and thankfully they continued that through the whole game. You would have thought maybe early on, with what happened previous weeks, can they continue that? But just the level of energy they showed was amazing, and it was just great to see.
Definitely. I suppose it was just nearly a case of Tyrone not showing Kerry any respect, because obviously when you're looking at David Clifford in the War Room, you're thinking, oh my God, it's intimidating, Conor. Like, let's be frank about it.
So, if you stand off them boys, like you stand off any forwards, like, or any level forwards at that level, you're going to be punished. And Tyrone couldn't afford to give Paddy O'Shea room and or Paddy Clifford room and to run at us. Couldn't afford to give Clifford Pellerin room. Sean O'Shea, if they give away too many frees, we're going to be punished. So Tyrone really had to be at a high disciplined level, and they showed that from day dot. I think they were just amazing, and hopefully they can continue that form into the next day. That'll be the key now as well.
Yeah, that's the point I was getting on to. Like, Ronan McNamee, he had a sensational game on Clifford, even though Clifford did score 8 or 9 points. But that's kind of Clifford knocking a few frees over. And I know David did go off injured, Conor, but Ronan McNamee and Paul Campsey, Michael McKernan, they manned that full back line very well, Conor.
They're done very, very well, exceptional. That's what you want. I think they're not afraid to go man to man. Then, boys, they can say, right, I'm on my own here, man to man. I'm going to mark this man. They aren't relying on the cover, they aren't relying on the blanket defence to come back and help out. So I think that's really stood out this year. All right, they got roasted in the league game down in Clarny, but I think that's been one of the features that they're fit to stand up and say, right, man to man, take me on, give me your best shot, and I'll see what I can do. So I think that's really set the platform then for Tyrone. Really, they're comfortable, or they're confident that they have the boys at the back to mark man and man, and then let the rest of the team then go and express themselves going forward.
Yeah. Gaz, Kieran McGeary, man of the match. He said after the game, no one believed in them. They'd done it. They got over the line. What a leader for that Tyrone team, Gaz.
Yeah, he was excellent. I think he got man of the match in the end. I think at the time I probably thought Myler maybe deserved it, but it wouldn't have mattered either or whoever got it. McGeary was outrageous. He got on an awful lot of ball, and in that type of game, when it's up and down the field with two really intense and fit sides, it's important you have somebody around the middle there who's going to pick up on scraps. And every time the ball seemed to break, either a secondary or third ball, McGeary always seemed to be there. And Conor mentioned it, when the Tyrone men were going 1v1, they always had that knack of getting the second man in quicker than Kerry did. And I think that's where a lot of the turnovers came. And an awful lot of the time I was kind of saying, Jesus, the Kerry boys are carrying the ball into the tackle a lot, but I don't think they had any choice a lot of the time. They were going down an alleyway where, if they turned back, they were going to get caught, and they had to keep going. Stephen O'Brien and these fellas, John mentioned earlier, he just hasn't been as effective as he was maybe 18 months ago or 2 years ago, and he just seemed to get turned over a couple of times as well. So McGeary, just his ability to win the ball, but not only win it, but always find the right man, because in that type of game where there's so many bodies lying around the place, he just had an ability to bring a calm head to it as well. So yeah, there was a couple of men's names mentioned as man of the matches after, but McGeary I think epitomised everything about Tyrone on the day. His ability to win ball, find the correct pass, and at that stage, you always need someone, I think, out around the half back line who's able to do that. And I think that set Tyrone off on a lot of more of their attacks. I think it was also probably a man that Tyrone were expecting an awful lot from this year. Probably hasn't gone his way this year either. Conor is McKenna, and I think it was probably his best game maybe in a Tyrone jersey this year from a championship perspective. Anyway,
Yeah,
regardless of the 2 goals, he just seemed to be moving an awful lot better than he has been. So McGeary the standout, but there was lots of boys stood up there when they were needed. Matty Donnelly at different stages as well. He was quiet at times, but when they needed him, he was there.
And interestingly, you make that point as well, guys. McGeary did kind of epitomise what Tyrone were about. It was just showing Kerry no respect, and as I said to Conor as well, like when you're looking at David Clifford in the warm up and Paul Geaney and the likes, Tyrone just went at them and just nearly didn't care. It's like they're kind of playing like a club game nearly. They just showed no respect, and they got the rewards for it, guys.
Yeah, I think those couple of yards extra you're getting in all those other games, and there's a lot of talk about Kerry maybe not having the acid tests coming through the whole championship like Tyrone would have had obviously up in the Ulster Championship, which is the most competitive of all the provincial ones, and Kerry had the 5-week layoff. They had a handy win over Cork. They weren't ran close at all through the Munster Championship. So there was a lot of talk maybe of that. And, you're looking at Sean O'Shea there, who John said, and I agree with John, he didn't necessarily play badly. He kept putting himself out there. He kept putting his neck on the line. But those final balls that he'd normally be finding Clifford with no problem, he just wasn't finding them because he wasn't getting the space and he wasn't getting the time on the ball like he had been in the previous months. So there's a couple of aspects you could look at it there, and I think the one you're saying is the one showing Kerry no respect. You could probably spin it on its head and say they showed them the ultimate respect by absolutely getting stuck into them, because they know how good they are. As Conor said, if you're going in there with any doubts, or you're going in with any hang-ups on your own ability to mark the likes of Clifford and O'Shea and these boys, you're probably not as well show up, because them boys will absolutely bury you. And I think although McNamee struggled an odd time on Clifford when the ball was hit into space, he still never gave up. He kept hanging out of him any chance he could get, and that was what kind of drove Tyrone on. Realised the forwards and midfielders realised that the backs were getting the job done. They were able to kind of perform to their own ability then and get the important scores when they needed. I think the bench as well that Tyrone introduced. Obviously, young Canavan, I think we were probably critical that, he should have buried that goal chance, but luckily it broke to McShane, and that's kind of what McShane was been good at the last couple of years. He was top scorer in the championship, was it the year before last, and 19, he was getting goals like that just on the periphery, hanging around the edge of the box, and proved crucial in the end, the introduction of the boys off the bench. And I think that's what Tyrone have brought this year, maybe with a few lads not making themselves available the last couple of years. Logan and Dooher seem to have cleaned the slate for everybody, and the bench was incredibly strong, probably the strongest Tyrone have had it in a couple of years the last day. So big difference coming on for them in the second half when they needed them.
Absolutely huge, guys. John, Niall Morgan, what do you say about the man? He kicked the point from about 5,000 yards out. Describe that man in a few sentences, John.
I tell you, I before last weekend, I kind of had my doubts over Morgan at times.
No doubts anymore.
Yeah, he kind of does some things a bit too fast, where you want him a little bit under more control. But when somebody kicks a ball like that, automatically they go up in my book. It was one of the most incredible things I've seen in Croke Park, I think. I didn't think O'Neill's ball with any force. It was just incredible to kick a ball from the halfway line. Like, these lads can't hit a sliotar that hard or that far. It was just incredible. And like, it's funny when people say about how far out it was. It's incredible to think that he can keep accuracy with so much force. And that we see that with free takers like that. It's easy to clip the ball over the bar from 25, 30, 35, 40 yards. And then when you go outside your little boundary, then you're forcing the ball and then your percentages go low. To keep an accurate shot from 70 yards, it really is like something that defies really logic. Like, it was just crazy. But he's been doing it quite a long time. I suppose it was actually a good one that we actually played them back to St. Mary's in I think it was like 2011 in a college game. That's what we first heard about him. Maybe 2010, 2011, I think. We heard about this guy kicking frees in league semi-final and not to give away any frees. We remember playing him in the final of the Ryan Cup, and he kind of struggled that day, and we kind of put him under a bit of pressure. But he did finish off, and when it was in extra time, we won the game. But in extra time, he was still able to kick 2 frees. So he's been doing that for 10 years now, and it's impressive. Like, it really, really is impressive to see such force of a kick and to keep the accuracy up. But on the flip side, as his kickouts in the second half, there was some that were didn't put his team in the right position as well. Like, he put him under a bit of pressure. And look, that'll have to be worked on, because Kerry as a forward unit pressing are very impressive for kickouts. But if you get the kick off away against Kerry, their forward line they're not going to tackle with the intensity that Mayo have. So if Morgan doesn't find his man, and even if he does find his man within his own 45, they're going to be hit hard, and it's going to be the intensity level will be so much higher against Mayo. So they'll have to really think that through and make sure their kickouts are working. And Morgan will be a big part of that, obviously. But yeah, it was the free alone was incredible.
Amazing, John. Amazing. Like, Niall Morgan's confidence. He went up. He stepped up. He nailed that point. Did that kind of nearly spur the Tyrone lads on to produce the performance that they did today, John? Because after that kick, that really gave them a good momentum kick.
Yeah, I think they drew on everything, and I'm pretty sure that even if something bad happened to them, they use that. Like, Tyrone have this incredible ability to turn any negative into a positive action. That's one thing I've always looked at and just kind of think, like, how can they do it? Because they've always had that. If something bad happens and people say it's a chip in the shoulder, or they're trying to just come back out and see if they can use any force, but they just seem to turn the negative into a positive. The same what they used with the COVID leading into it was obviously going to be a distraction for both teams. Maybe it was a distraction for Kerry, but it just, Tyrone were able to turn that negative into a positive and get on with things. Like, their defensive unit, I think was the big thing that really spurred them on. Like, and we've heard over the years about like Tyrone, their defence has gotten so far and they've gotten to an Ireland final or Ireland semi-finals. This year I was really impressed with their offence. They're up front. But again, they relied on their defence last weekend, and everything they did in defence spurred them on throughout the game. Every single thing. Not only just the turnovers and smothering Kerry forwards out, to have 4 defenders, 3 of them from the full back line, coming up and being on the end of 4 scores was incredible. Like, and I think I can only assume they made sure that was part of the parcel. Like, as Kerry probably are aware of teams dragging their best forwards down the pitch. Kerry were probably told that David Clifford, you don't follow, or Sean O'Shea, don't follow, hold your ground. And I'd say Tyrone were told to get those players on the end of it. Usually it's corner forward or cornerbacks and fullbacks running up the field only as a distraction to drag a player. Well, Tyrone made sure they were the last man on the ball as well, and to kick 4 points from play from your defence is pretty impressive. Like, 4 different defenders to score. So they just drew in everywhere. They just suffocated Kerry, and they just drew up momentum from every single angle on the pitch, and every single player can hold their head up and say, I had a moment there that spurred the whole team on.
talking about moments to spur things on as well, Conor, we did discuss it, but Peter Hart, he's been around the block. He's done a lot for Tyrone football. We talked about the block near the end. It did remind us, of course, against your block. A bit about Peter Hart and what it was like to even play with him back a couple of years ago, Conor, and the impact that he does have in this Tyrone team.
Oh, Peter's a massive player. And on top of it all off, he's a great lad. He teaches in the primary school in Doneckmore, and the kids, I've been in the school then coaching, but the kids then absolutely love him. He's the only male teacher in the school, and they just love him to bits. He's one of them guys, just real cool, calm customer, but a great way about him. And he sort of plays his football like that, cool, calm, and collected as well. Coming for a bit of criticism over this last number of years, I think, unfairly due to performance and stuff, but to see a Tyrone team go out to Petey Hart on it, you're full of confidence. When he come in, first of all, I remember one day we were playing Donegal, and he was in the freeze that day up in Clonus, might have been, 12 maybe, something like that. And they were giving a bit of guff that day, and it took him a wee while to get over it, and he's just struggled a wee bit on the free kicks that day. They gave him plenty of mouth that day from the Donegal ones and supporters and all the rest, but I think that sort of helped him in the long run. That sort of way it made him hardened up to it, and he's just been an exceptional player for Tyrone. Like everything he does uses class. You want to see him in club games on Tyrone here. Like you just can't keep him down. Like he's just a star player every day. He goes out for the club Errigal, and it'd be a nightmare going to try and chase after him or run after him. In them club games, but just an exceptional player, and he just showed on Sunday that just epitomised what he's all about. Put the head down, get that block in. It was a massive moment. Kerry got a goal at that stage of the game, and it could have happened. It would have been a massive lift for Kerry, but just Petey put the body in the line and got the hands down and kept it out, thankfully. And though Sean O'Shea turned around and clipped it over the bar from the 45 after, but I think a goal at that stage would have been massive for Kerry. But just good to see Petey stepping up to the plate as he normally does and showing so well and playing so well.
Yeah, and I suppose, Conor, Peter Hart's block, Niall Morgan's point from way out, them kind of moments, Conor, realistically, they're game-changing moments, match-winning moments, and my God, the sport team's on.
I definitely do have to agree with what they're saying there. Like I think sort of Tyrone grew and it happened at all. They just seemed to get stronger and stronger and more confident as the game went on, and just them wee things always help. They're a wee game changer, as you say, like, and it's just wee spurs help you go on, and just them wee things sort of help make your day. That sort of way. That right things are going our way, and everyone just fell into place for them after that. So it was just one of them days. We got to rub the green with different wee things here and there, but as I said, we'll make your luck as you go along, and that was one of the outstanding moments of the game's Petey's block. So hopefully we keep the goals out. Keep the goals out. As you said earlier on, the boys said earlier on, keep the goals out. They're massive, especially at championship level. At that level there, if you can score goals, you're on the way to the top. But if you can keep them out, it's a massive help as well.
It definitely is. I suppose, Gaz, Darren McCurry's black card, he was gone for 10 minutes. But Tyrone were actually playing that well, Gaz. They nearly, when he did go off, I know McShea was inside, but they were playing that well. He nearly didn't even realise that they were a man down.
Yeah, no, the intensity they were bringing at that stage of the game, and they look to be finishing the stronger as well, John. I think that was maybe a concern. Even a lot of the Tyrone folk had it. I think Cavan has said it before the game. If the game is in the melting pot going down the home straight, what will Tyrone have in reserve? And Jesus, they had lots in reserve. And it was silly from McCurry, who it was the kind of it was the kind of silly decision of a maybe a forward who wasn't having his best day. John mentioned earlier, Thomas Sullivan was unbelievable the other day. He got in so much ball. I think he kicked the score, and he was classy throughout, and he didn't give McCurry a sniff. But then the break must have done McCurry good, because he came on and kicked that point, I think at maybe was it 76, 77 minutes. I think it was to give them the lead, lads. Was it 2-11? I think that put them to 16 up. Yes, and I thought that might be the winner, and I was thinking, geez, he hasn't got a kick all day, and he got the black and went off and got his rest for himself, and kicked a lovely score. So yeah, it was silly from him, especially on that kind of stage, to maybe if it had to come back and haunt them, he'd be fairly kicking himself, because he's had a brilliant year. One of those guys who you're probably saying that never really got a fair crack at a whip under Mickey the last few years, and he looks to be reborn this year. He's lost a couple of kilos maybe, and he looks really fit, and he's been pinging scores. So that was a lovely score, and he came back in after the black, and in fairness, he reacted well to it. So yeah, as you said, it didn't really seem to knock Tyrone's momentum as much as the big game changers pushed them on. That didn't really seem to phase them, and that's what I was not surprised about. Tyrone, a serious, resilient bunch, we all know that, but they never got too phased, or they never got too panicked in any situation or scenario. And I couldn't believe how focused they looked and how in control they always looked, even when Kerry did get on top. And maybe that's what, maybe a bit of what Dooher is bringing to the table, or Logan, I'm not sure, but never panicked, kept working the passes, kept finding the best man on the ball. And as you said, even when they did, with McCurry's silly decision, they never panicked at all and just kept ticking away. So yeah, could have been a problem, but it wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Big question is, was it a black card? Heat of the battle, everything that was going on. You'd need to always have the back, the side, and the front of your head, Gaz, on that particular day. Pat and Sean were talking about it in the Sunday game, but what was your take on it, Gaz?
I think it was. Look, I've got a good few blacks myself in my day, and I've always debated them after. But I think it was. I think, look, maybe the Kerry lad, I don't know who it was he hit actually, lads. He didn't hit him. He just basically checked his run, didn't he? And your man maybe could have stood up to it. If your man stayed in his feet, obviously he probably doesn't get the black. So your man maybe says, right, we'll get a numerical advantage here. And McCurry could have been unlucky, but he didn't. He could have stopped and he could have slowed down, and he didn't. His momentum carried him into him, and I think he could have prevented it. So in my eyes, I felt it was a black in the end. And look, I don't think the boys were talking about it in extra time or after full time. All right, I think the boys were just willing to row over and scrap over anything. It didn't matter whether they agreed or disagreed on it. They were going to have a fallout over something. And yeah, I think it was a black anyway, John. Luckily, it's not major talking point because it didn't impact the game hugely. But if it had have impacted the game hugely, obviously I think it had still been talked about. But luckily, from McCurry's point of view, it wasn't. So
yeah, definitely. John, Conor McKenna, 2 goals. He's probably had a relatively quiet year up until this game on Saturday. Huge impact on Saturday. He flew it. He got on ball in the middle of the field. Very supportive in the corner forward line. Impressive stuff by Mr. McKenna, John.
Yeah, he was. He's like he's a real powerhouse as well. Like I actually realised he was a good finisher as well. But I think just such a power in his running he has is he can just draw in men from every angle. But also there was actually his work off the ball goes unnoticed as well. I actually copped him a couple of times when Gavin White had broke through the middle a couple of times. Usually in the past we've seen Gavin White just kind of separating from the chasing player. And McKenna was catching him. So he just has so much pace and power, whether it's running defensively, running back, or whether he's a ball carrier. He's so threatening, like, and he's obviously that game is gonna bring him on so much as well, going into a final, and he'll take serious tension from Mayo. But I think what he does have as well, he's coming back from Australia, and he's probably playing without being fully. We get coaches in the game kind of coaching you to play the percentages. He's kind of playing as if he's an 18-year-old again, I think, where sees the ball, he sees a gap in the goal, and he's going for goal. Like most people for his second goal probably would have clipped it over the bar maybe at that stage, but he went for it. Like he's a brave type of a player, and he couldn't even picture what his best position is, because he think he could play. I'd say he's the type of player who can play anywhere from 5 to 15, and I think he probably does play. He probably gets around the pitch. He doesn't obviously stay in full forward line. He gets around and he covers everywhere. I suppose that's what him and Matty Donnelly probably come best at as well. They're able to, both of them are able to kind of take pocket in the full forward line, and alternate with a bit of movement around the pitch as well. Like so, it's they've a lot to work with going forward now for the final. In particular, when I don't think their forward line really shot the lights out either. They really relied on their defence. Like when you're going in at half time, I think McKenna's goal was the only forward score from play. I think Matty Donnelly got a mark, and the rest were all defenders, and 2 frees from Morgan. And then it took McShane on, and McCurry coming back in fresh after his 10-minute break, where he kicked 2 from play after that. And obviously McShane hitting 1-3. So they have a lot to work on going forward. But isn't that a wonderful place to be going into a final when you have McKenna, McShane, Canavan, Matty Donnelly, McCurry, all just looking to build on their performance, because I'd imagine McCurry is looking to build from his last game, and so they all have something to work on, and it's great. It's nice getting into a final, but when you're going into a final, not having the complete performance, it's a perfect way to be going into it.
John Conor McKenna's second goal, he probably couldn't believe his luck. Unfortunately, I think it was a Jason Foley had a shock, and it was Gavin White just to kick the ball out. It just seemed like a bit of a brain fart at that stage of the game. Legs were perhaps gone, but he probably couldn't believe his luck for the second goal, John.
I think it was a Jack Barry. It was
Jack Barry. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I think when we talk about breaks in the game, certain players had fantastic games, and the ball just lands in a lap. And I think Jack Barry, I think everything he did nearly had the opposite. He just couldn't get a break in the game. He got over a number of times, and at that stage, so late in the game, he was probably probably out on his feet, and the mind probably wasn't working, because usually you'd imagine a midfielder in that position. I think it was Tyrone McCann. He was resting third. You'd like to think Jack Barry could be able to just either out-muscle him or see it out or do something. But to swing a leg at it right back into the box pretty much, you just don't know what's going through the mind there. I think any full backline player there, Gary would tell you and Conor would tell you better than I would what he should be doing, but wasn't the best of moves to make. But McKenna to take it up at that stage of the game, just to go for the juggler, without even thinking about it, was just brave, and he just went for it, and it was a smashing finish, absolute smashing. Ryan in the goal is a big guy, but he still couldn't get a reach on that one.
Yeah, serious finish for that time of the game as well. Conor, Brian Dewar, what more do you really say about the man? We've seen an extra time. He was in the middle of the huddle. He was rallying the troops. I think it was just a class moment. He was getting the troops rallied. It was just brilliant. A word of Brian Dewar, nearly what it was like to play with him back all them years ago, because he's a special man in Tyrone GA circles.
Oh, he's unbelievable. Mad man to train with, just mad. The training all man was doing was, everything you heard about him is probably true, like, you know. Remember, like, doing rehab session with him on a Saturday morning, you know, and I just was running with sandbags on, the sandbags on, running them on, and he wanted to do more, and brutal. But the only thing, when you come back from rehab sessions with Brian Dewar, you're fitter than the rest of the boys, not sort of way. So you were glad to get away from Dewar to get back to the handy training, you know. So the training sessions was crazy, like, but it was benefited us in the long run, you know. So just sort of what I was saying earlier on, like, I just epitomised that performance, just epitomised what Brian Dewar is all about. Sort of that gung-ho, going at it, there's no holding back, just really play the shirt to your back sort of type stuff, you know, heart in the sleeve, really going at it, just showing what you're capable of doing. And the boys did that on Saturday to the T. I think it was all down to him, and I think the matchups and everything, as we mentioned earlier on, was spot on. I think them having Darren McCurry or Tom O'Sullivan picking up Darren McCurry was also another thing that really helped Tyrone as well, I think, you know, because he's a massive player for Kerry going forward, and keeping the men up the field, keeping Darren up the field close to goals really helped in that, you know. He wasn't for the drive it as much. He's a massive player for them, so I think that was one of the key matchup as well. It worked out very, very well for Tyrone. But Dewar's just on his first year to step into the boots, what he's done after Mickey Hart, and to bring that team to an Ireland final is just shows you what he's about, or what him and Fergal's about. That really, they've changed the mindset a wee bit again from 5, 6, 7, 8 years maybe of playing defensive football now to change the mindset and to bring them now playing exceptional football, I think. And to bring them to the Ireland final just has been great, and long may continue to play like that. You know, it wouldn't have been easy changing the mindset maybe in a few boys, and everybody's bought into them. You know, from what I hear, the boys just love them. You know, and they've great backroom team as well, great experience in Collie Holmes and Joe McMahon there as well. You know, the exceptional men have been there, done it as well. So, and again, Peter Donnelly was another massive. I think that was one of the first phone calls that was made to get Pete Donnelly back in again, and it's just, you know, everyone's just clicked for them at the minute, and hopefully it clicks again in a couple of weeks' time for them, you know. Yeah,
if you could send Peter Donnelly back down to Cavan, Conor, it'd be appreciated.
I think Pete would go in anywhere, you know, that they would love him. You know, he's a great guy, and all the boys just love him. And He's been there before, and it was one of the first phone calls I said that was made to get him back in, and it's really showed the conditioning of the boys, like what they've been through this last number of weeks. And Tyrone, we weren't expecting. You wouldn't know what was going to happen. Were they going to be all fit to play? Were they going to last the pace? And just the condition of them was just amazing, and a lot of that has to go down to Pete Donnelly, I'd imagine, the way he has them.
Conor, it would have been an easy few weeks as well for Brian Dewar and Fergal Logan, obviously with the COVID outbreak, and we heard Brian Dewar speaking after the game, Fergal Logan. I think some journalists were kind of getting frustrated, and after the game they were getting frustrated with the questions that they're being asked. But it was a tough look, Conor. It was a tough few weeks. You were saying off air you're only after recovering from the COVID yourself, so a tough couple of weeks. Like at the end of the day, it really was an amazing achievement by Tyrone on Saturday.
I don't surely, like, you've been hearing rumours and stories about such and such a player's been in bed for 3 or 4 days, and maybe boys going to hospital with it and really struggling with it, So it's just been, you just didn't know really what Tyrone was going to show up. Personally, I thought maybe when the game was originally first fixed, I thought Tyrone was in with a massive shout here beating Kerry, And then I suppose with the COVID and all the rest and the long delay, you just weren't too sure what way they're going to react to it. But as I said, fair play to the whole medical staff, the backroom team, and all the rest of the boys in superb shape. And the performance they've shown on Saturday was amazing, and long may continue. But it's just exciting times. I said at the start of the programme, exciting times to be looking forward to a Ireland final again, and they don't come around that often. And hopefully the boys now make the most of it and get the head down and work hard now for the next couple of weeks and really enjoy what they've done. But they've a hard game to look forward to.
Gaz, Colin McShane obviously getting that all-important goal in extra time as well. Like it was a great goal. It was a real poacher's finish. I was right behind him. His movement is just class. He knows when to run. He knows what to do. A very intelligent footballer, Gaz.
Yeah, he is, and he offered himself for Canavan, I think, originally, but Canavan kind of showed and went himself then, and he ended up executing it poorly, hit it straight at the keeper, but McShane didn't give up on it, could have thrown his hands up in the air when he didn't get it originally and maybe done that, but he followed it in and fisted it to the net, and might have looked like a tap-in, but in order to still be engaged at that point, it's probably because as a defender you're hoping just to get anything on it at that stage. But no, McShane, he was good, he was cute, and I suppose he hasn't got a right chance maybe to get up and running properly this year. He's only been coming in 5-10 minutes at the end of games, and it's very hard when you're doing that to try and get a bit of momentum going. But John remarked on it earlier, what a position to be going in now after coming on and kind of pushing Tyrone on and hitting 1-3 and looking forward to another Ireland final. And I'd say he's probably hoping it's going to be a tough forward line to push himself into, but I'd say if he's fully fit now, he's probably saying, Jesus, I want to get him that starting 15 now for the All-Ireland final. They may stick to try to keep him in reserve again if it's a tight game coming down the home straight and spring him again against Mayo. But if you've tired legs and the Kerry boys are after dealing with all they're after dealing with, and the powerful running of McKenna and these boys, and then Colin McShane's coming in, you're kind of thinking, Jesus, you know what I mean? So no, as we said earlier, the bench really boosted Tyrone, and it was great to see the energy coming on and the ability to go for it as well. John mentioned earlier about McKenna, but the other boys that came in as well, Canavan could have clipped that over the bar himself. There was a couple of Kerry boys that got back on the line. Canavan could have tapped it over and took a score, but he went for it and he hit it straight at the keeper, but McShane followed it in. So they really went for the jugular, and I think they could sense that the goals were there as well. Kerry were just that little bit fragile at times. I thought Foley came out with a couple of very good balls early on, maybe was it early on in the second half, but he also looked a little bit suspect sometimes when the boys ran at him. So great position for Tyrone to be going into. Them boys have got extra minutes in the legs, and everybody, I'd say, training now probably only the next week. It'll be tapered down fairly far out from the final, but they'll be going hammer and tongs in the next couple of sessions to try and get their heads in there for the final.
And as Joe Brawley on Twitter was saying, Gaz, the Son of God was brought on, and what impact he had.
Yeah, his balance and his feet is probably, Conor tell you more now about it, but it's only from watching the owl at Peter on telly and that. But he's very quick, he's very light. You think by looking at him coming in there, you'd be thinking if you got him with a good shot or Kerry got 2 or 3 around him, but he seems to have a knack of evading the tackle. He's clever on the ball, he doesn't carry it into the tackle too often, he knows when to release it, he knows when to draw the man, and yeah, he's got that touch of class now, having to follow in his footsteps is not easy for any young fella to do. But you know, and I think in Tyrone they've been talking about him for a couple of years now. So probably important he wasn't thrown in too early either. But yeah, he had a big contribution off the bench as well. And another fella you're thinking, you know, the legs are feeling, the lactic acid is building up there around 50-60 minutes, and then you see this little whippet coming off the bench. That's going to cover lots of ground. I'd say, you know, you'd be thinking, can the day get any worse? But yeah, no, there's some great options there, and I think the ability of a good few of those lads coming back into the fold, and as Connor says, whose ear is closer to the ground up there, they seem to really be enjoying their football now, and they're playing for the management as well, you know.
Yeah. Will we call him Little Whippet now or the Son of God, guys? What's better?
Either or. Son of God sounds better.
What about you, Connor? What do you call him? The Son of God or Little Whippet?
Oh, Son of God, surely. Oh, Son of God, yeah.
That's the gospel from John McGrath. The Kerry fallout from all this. Peter Keane, 3 years at the helm. He's a serious backroom team with Tommy Griffin, James Foley, and Maris Fitz there. The future for Peter Keane, John?
Yeah, it's look, they're Kerry. They're measured on only one medal, the rest of them they don't really care about. And 3 years with that group of players, there is not Ireland in them. And if he hasn't developed in 3 years, and we all know Paddy O'Shea once said they're animals. The fans are animals down at Kerry, and they'll be out for him for the next few months. Look, he's obviously a really good record with their minors and bringing them through. But when you get to senior level, minor and senior are so different. Like, you're relying on talent, mainly relying on talent at minor. Like, and it's just such a different game at senior level. You have to be so tactical aware now. And Kerry, being the traditionalists they are, they probably stuck to their guns with their own game plan coming into this because they've been going so well all year. And probably why would they change it up? But it just didn't look like they had a plan B or a plan C or a plan D. And I think everybody in the country knew what Tyrone were going to bring. They were going to bring that ferocious tackling to start with. Everybody knew it, like, and Kerry still kind of walked into their traps. We can rely on talent all you want, and you can say the players should be a little bit smarter as well to see it on the pitch. But when you're training a certain way and you're going for the juggler time and time again, game after game, I think the 21, 22 goals this year, it's bed into you all year to go for that juggler when it's there. And it looked like Tyrone just kept going for it, and they paid the price now. I don't know what really way the players view him down there, but looking in, I'd imagine his time is running up, and they should be really looking at something new there, and probably looking at a bit of a change in Kerry fully as well, in terms of trying to catch up with some of the bigger teams tactically, and start planning for your opposition more than relying on their own natural talents. Maybe they are, but it just looks like it from the outside. It just looks like they're so good that they're relying on their own ability and talent to win games, rather than spending a certain amount of time on their tactical awareness of the opposition as well.
And John, like, could Kerry nearly believe Tyrone's intensity in this game, or should they have expected a bit more? Because realistically, they probably just expected a bit of a cakewalk, or maybe the Tyrone lads might be a bit fatigued after 56 minutes. That wasn't the case on Saturday, John.
Yeah, look, we all play the game and know, like, that you can talk about intensity and you can talk all you want about certain things. Until you're in there, you just don't know. And Kerry haven't been in there at all in the championship this year. They haven't been tested like that with that type of intensity. And I'm sure Kerry A versus Bs now are like Dublin were a few years ago. They're very tough, I'm sure, but again, they're back to their way of playing, and it's their traditional style of football. You just can't. You can be prepared for Tyrone's intensity, but when you're in it, it's different. And Tyrone they just had it everywhere on the pitch. Every single player was just ferocious, right from Niall Morgan all the way up. So we can give out about Kerry in a lot of things. To handle it, some of the players really stood up, and they were within a kick of a ball of doing it. And I'm sure if they did hold out and that goal, McShane didn't slot in that goal in 68 or 69 minutes, and they held out, we'd be talking about a resilient Kerry holding off Tyrone. but they didn't, and that's the thing. When they're coming up against these teams in tight games, they're losing them. And I think was it 1 win in Croke Park in the last 10. But yeah, they have a lot to work on there. But again, you just have to keep giving credit to Tyrone. Tyrone worked their way into every position on the pitch, and they worked for their win. Again, I'd say that they have a lot to work on, but they just showed the work rate can really be the difference in tight games like that. And like if you just look at some of the goals, like I said earlier, Tyrone's first goal, there was 2 Kerry defenders sauntering back. In's goal, Kerry had the numbers there, but it was the aggressive forward movement by Shane get there first. So their intensity all over the pitch was there to go for it. Like, and I'm sure people are going back to the league game, but Tyrone are just after proving that you can learn from any negative part of the year. Like, and that game was no good to Kerry, scoring 6 goals, no good to them. But Tyrone, it's been there. What they've looked back at, I'm sure, during the year and say, we can't have that happen again. And I'm sure they've been working on that over and over again. Kerry got into scoring positions, the forced way into scoring positions, and Tyrone had 2-3 men merging on them every single time. So they're just the ultimate team to turn negative into a positive. And when you have that ability to want to learn, ability to want to get better, along with that ferocious mentality have, they're just exactly what you, as a coach, they're exactly what you'd want to be looking at.
Yeah, bang on, Sean, bang on. And I suppose, Conor, when you look at the Kerry team, obviously some of the matchups, you had maybe Tom O'Sullivan and Darren McCurry, Jason Foley, I seen picked up Colin McShane when he came on. So I suppose, were them matchups correct? Obviously, I think, when you do look at it, I know maybe Jason Foley's legs were kind of gone at the end, but McShane really did give him a bit of a run around, Conor.
I definitely did. Probably should have Cahill all right to go on Foley all right, and as the boys mentioned, he scored 1-3 of them, like, so definitely did benefit him on him. As mentioned earlier on about O'Sullivan on McCurry was another massive one. Maybe Kerry might have got that a wee bit wrong, maybe with O'Sullivan's attacking prowess that he has. He sets up a lot of stuff and gets involved, but as the boys mentioned, imagine you're playing 60 odd minutes or 55 odd minutes, then McShane coming on, it'd be a nightmare. You'd be reaching for the hamstring just to get out there, or you'd be wrapping him up just like a round bale just to get out of there, just like a backyard, But McShane Cahill probably, as the boys mentioned earlier on, he'd be mad pushing out to get start, but his impact he's coming off the bench this last couple of games has been absolutely massive, and it's probably got thrown over the line in them few games. So it'll be interesting to see, will he start the next day? Will they hold him? You have Mark Bradley as well coming in there. Hasn't sort of been mentioned. Hasn't got much game time, but another sharp forward, and along with Dara, that's what Dara brings. That sort of whippetness, as I said there earlier. He's been brilliant and catches his eye. Like, he's that fast and elusive. As someone next to the have, so I'll want to see how team selection all goes now, especially in the forward line. I think the defence sort of picks itself. Up in midfield sort of has been doing fairly well as well. They've been battling hard and working hard, so that forward unit will be interesting on the selection committee now, how they get on for the next day.
Talking about forwards, Kerry's forwards, Conor, David Clifford, Paul Geaney, Paddy Clifford, and I know Paddy Clifford was kind of playing on the periphery, kind of drifting out, getting on ball. But then Tommy Walsh kind of came on. He didn't really do much, unfortunately. Paul Geaney had an off day. David Clifford obviously went off injured. I think he was well injured before. I think Peter Keane should have whipped him off even earlier because he did look in a very bad way. A big underperformance by the top 3 for Kerry on Saturday, Conor.
I'd say they're probably fairly disappointed how they got on overall. I don't think their tactics helped Kerry a lot. They just seem to be doing the same thing for the whole game. It wasn't done really until they went 5 points down an extra time that they really started to really cut under Tyrone and really move that wee bit quicker and a wee bit sharper, and got 4 in a row maybe, so never really kicked any early ball into likes of Clifford. The wee pop pass one time in front of the D and he got away from McNamee and swung it over, but never really got a good early ball until him and really exposed the Tyrone defence. They're moving at pace, but a lot of it was through the hands. And it really played into Tyrone's hands defensively all the time. Clifford fit to get the ball, or Shea's fit to get the ball, and there was always that extra man their times to help out and try and turn them over. So very disappointing Kerry's tactics overall, and that probably didn't help their forward unit to move efficiently as they can do, as we've seen that they can do. So again, bringing on Tommy Walsh, probably from a Tyrone point of view, we're probably nearly glad to see Tommy on that last kick, that last play. And it probably hasn't been the most accurate forward that Kerry have. So probably a wee bit disappointing from their point of view that he should have been looking maybe for Sean O'Shea or Paddy Clifford or somebody that's more accurate forward. But we were just glad to see him kick it wide at that stage, and glad to see Morgan Hoofer down the field and the final whistle going. But I'll say overall, generally, Kerry forward line have been fairly disappointed in how they went at the weekend.
Yeah. Gaz, as John was saying, Kerry didn't look like they had a plan B, C, D or E, which was obviously very weird. I just couldn't really understand nearly. But so when David Clifford did go off injured, it really didn't look like Kerry had a plan B going forward.
No, and when you're launching Tommy Walsh from the bench, it's generally a fair sign that you're chasing the game. And that's no disrespect to Tommy Walsh. I know they generally bring him on in the games when the game is sewn up, but at this point they were bringing him in to try and get them back in there. And with Clifford gone, I think even having him on that last ball, I think Conor would say the Tyrones were the McNamees and boys who are physically strong men anyway, and McNamee would be perfectly suited to Mark and Tommy Walsh. We're probably thinking not so bad when the legs are tired and you're seeing a big man coming on. It probably suits you better than having to chase Clifford around for extra time. So I think at that point it was the last throw of the dice. They obviously would have been hoping to have Clifford in there around Walsh as well, maybe to pick up a few balls. But it was surprising, because I think if we look back to last year and the nature of how they went out against Cork in the Munster final, and Cork won with the last kick of the game, and Kerry never really got out of the traps and they never really looked too bothered, and Cork caught them cold at the end with the goal, you kind of said, right, Peter Keane has learned from his mistakes this year, because they came out of the blocks this year, they didn't play any of that defensive style football and they absolutely blitzed everybody, and everybody says, cute Kerry Hooers, they're after learning from last year that it's time. Peter Keane's under pressure now, he's going into his third year with this group of players, and we know the expectations they have down there, so he really had to win the All-Ireland this year, I feel, in order to get himself out of bother. And I think with the dubs been gone, as I think Pat Spillane said, that the elephant in the room was gone. It was kind of it paved the way for a Kerry win. And even the dialogue around Mayo, and it's not necessarily Mayo people saying it, I think the whole of Ireland was saying, Mayo would rather play Tyrone in a final. But I'd say, the boys watching that game the other day and the intensity Tyrone brought to it, I'm not so sure there would have been either, but I think it was the Kerry forward power, that destroyed those Mayo teams and all those All-Irelands that were beaten in the last couple of years. They were probably thinking this is a similar Kerry team coming now with loads of firepower. So, it was disappointing. I think Keane should have learned from last year, and it wasn't necessarily to have a plan B, but, you would have thought at this level he would have had all that kind of planned for. If Clifford was going to get injured, he's the most watched man in Ireland, so you can imagine a lot of teams were going to target him, and it was actually innocuous enough. It was Morgan clearing that loose ball in the air that O'Shea played to him that caught him, and it looked to be just a really bad dead leg. It looked like he might be coming on again. He sat down in the line alongside the physio, and I thought they might be doing a bit of work on him to get him loosened out to come on, but he never did in the end. So pity from Kerry's point of view. As John mentioned earlier, I think that could be Tomas O'Shea stuck the boot in as well on the Sunday game regards Peter Keane's involvement going forward, so I'd say there's going to be a change there for sure.
I suppose, guys, the best comparison you can use, I suppose with Gooch, Donaghy and Tommy Walsh at the peak of the powers of Kerry, that's when you knew Kerry were in business. It just looked on Saturday night, the likes of Geaney and Clifford and David Clifford, it's just like you can't really rely nearly on Paul Geaney and Stephen O'Brien to get you over the line in these big games, because at the end of the day, if these players are worth their salt, they will win an All-Ireland for you.
Yeah, Geaney struggled badly the last couple of years, and I think maybe it was harsh on O'Brien earlier. I think O'Brien was omitted from the All-Stars. Was it the year before last year maybe? Yeah, and he was a shoe-in. I thought he was probably Footballer of the Year that year as well in 19, or one of the contenders. And then he didn't even end up getting nominated, I don't think so. Or he got nominated, he didn't get one. But So last year, then he didn't make it into the starting 15 for the early stages of the Munster, and I think he struggled since then. And Geaney, like that, I think with Clifford, the emergence of Clifford and O'Shea, Geaney suffered a little bit as a result. You know, and as I said earlier, I think Keane was shoehorning him in there as a wing half forward at the start of the championship, just trying to find a place for him. And you know, I don't think it worked. Yes, you can kind of evolve it in a sense that if you know some of the boys want to come out the field, Sean O'Shea had a different role this year as well. He wasn't playing kind of solely out in the 40. He was kind of playing closer to Clifford, and Geaney was doing that roving role. So, you know, John alluded to it earlier. I think you can't just turn it on. Then you can't land into a game when you haven't played in 5 weeks. The intensity of Tyrone with the likes of O'Brien and Geaney who haven't performed all year, you can't expect them just to flick a switch then when you have the Tyrone boys hanging out of you everywhere you go. So yeah, it was disappointing, I suppose, that nobody took the game by the scruff of the neck. It's easier said than done. I always kind of make these comparisons even with ourselves when we used to play. You know, I used to hate after a game you'd hear there was no leaders and no one stepped up. It's not that you're not trying to step up. I think with a lot of these lads, you're literally trying everything you can, but it's just not coming off for you. And I think that's what happened with Kerry the other day. You know, you could see the body language in the last couple of minutes as well. Even in normal time, I felt their body language in the last few minutes wasn't great. You know, I felt like they felt it was just this, you know, a Tyrone train coming at them every time they got a bit of momentum going. Tyrone just hit them back, and I think they, you know, going into extra time, I think it looked like there was only one team that was going to win it at that point. You know.
Yeah, definitely, Gaz. And I suppose, John, what does this really mean for Kerry football? Because, you know, they were betting 2019 All-Ireland final. They haven't won an All-Ireland since 2014. There's a huge fallout from this game on Saturday, John. Let's be frank about it.
Yeah, there is. And there's one thing I kind of keep thinking about as well, like that if Kerry don't push on and do something quick, there's a chance that we could hear of, like, everybody keeps talking about, oh, the likes of Clifford and O'Shea, they're going to win All-Irelands, but there's no guarantee of that. Just because they've underage success and they're young now and they're brilliant players now, we could look back in 10 years' time and think, Jesus, and it's a shame that David Clifford doesn't have an All-Ireland, like, and that's what could happen, like, because we're more likely going to have a couple of fall-offs now. Like, you don't know where Dave Moore will go, whether Paul Geaney will hang on. So it's going to be difficult. They're going to find tough because Tyrone aren't going away. Their squad looks like a nice balanced squad. They're going to be there for a while. I'm sure Donegal are going to come back with a bang. With Mayo coming for a few years, and obviously Dublin are going to come back as strong as ever next year. Like, so, yeah, Kerry are in trouble now unless they can turn around and make a big appointment. They're under pressure. Like, but I suppose at the same time, Gary mentioned there about leaders, like, and they did try. Like, Gavin White really tried, and Paul Murphy really tried. It was just in that final third they just didn't have a plan B or C. Like, and like, I think sometimes we're all so obsessive about getting the ball to the scoring zone and executing a score from that zone. And the way Dublin have done it for years and have been able to create space in there, I think a lot of teams have just gone away from being able to kick a score, whether it's 14 yards out, halfway from goal to the sideline or that. Like, those shots aren't being taken anymore. And I think there's plenty of players in Kerry that could take those on, like, and could be shooting from outside zones. But they just kept running down into that channel, Tyrone, right into the heart of it, and just kept getting turned over. So unless a coach comes in there that's really going to put more tactical awareness into them, and it's going to put a lot of encouragement into them to take on opportunities when you get a yard outside of scoring, because I think Kerry are capable of that. But then it could be in trouble. Because you just don't know what's going to happen now with some of the teams coming really strong in the next couple of years. But look, I'm sure, again, everybody's experts the day after a game or a few days after it. We'd be probably, if it had to turn around and Kerry had to go over the line, we'd be talking about them being here for the next 10 years. So it can swing very quickly as well all the way around.
The funny thing is, John, like, you know, it's thrown only one by a point. You nearly swear it was 6 or 7 points at this stage, probably the way people talk about the game. But obviously, David Clifford, he's the captain. He went off injured. John, there's huge pressure on that man's shoulders. Obviously, we heard yesterday, actually, a baby boy there, I think the following day after. So, you know, even outside of football, there is a lot of pressure on Mr. Clifford, John.
There is, but look, sure, isn't that why like the best players need to take on that pressure? It's part and parcel of it. Everybody has that ambition in them to be the best player on the park, and they all want it. So you have to take that pressure. And David Clifford looks like a guy that is well capable of the pressure. He was under a lot of pressure after the Cork game when he didn't get on the score sheet from play. And we saw how he answered that. He's actually well capable of it. Like the worrying thing is like that. Like Kerry played that 70-minute game. The first, like, within normal time, 70 minutes. They had 17 points on the board, and him and Sean O'Shea kicked, was it 16 of that or 15 of that? That's the worrying thing, like that. When you have class acts, just to rely on it. And when David Clifford did go off, so they had 4 scores. I think Thomas Sullivan and Paddy Clifford were the other 2 scorers in 70 minutes. When David Clifford was off the pitch, then they scored 5 points, and it was 4 different scores in extra time. So sometimes there's this over-reliance on them that you think, like, oh, if you scored 9 points, it would have been 9 points worse off. That's not necessarily the case. Sometimes you just need to kind of step out and see what's around you as well. So if you can get a coach who comes in there and gets that blend and that mix where he can unite the big players there with everything that's around and get everybody doing their job, like, I'm pretty sure Conor will be the first person to really tell us who's the go-to men, who's the big scorers, who's the right men, like, and who does their job. And you look at Tyrone's front 6, Conor Myler and McGeary. They have a role, they have a job, and they stick to it. And if they get on the end of a score or 2, they'll do it, but they know what the bigger job is. So it's trying to get that blend of what suits the team best, rather than putting just your best 6 players out there. And it just looks like Kerry kind of did that. Like Paul Gainey, for me, he's been a class act for a long time. But yeah, sticking him on the wing forward there in Croke Park, it's of course not going to suit his game. And I think when Donncha Walsh used to play with Kerry, everybody used to say, like, oh, well, he's not one of the best 6 forwards in Kerry. He may not be, but he suited that team and he did a job for that team. And I think that's the balance you need to get right with a forward unit. And look, if you can get somebody that's able to contribute to get Clifford to still be that player he is, but yet have 5 other players around to complement him, that's the big aim for Kerry now for the next couple of years.
Yeah, spot on, John. And I suppose following on from that, Conor, what John was saying, how important is it now Kerry do get that balance right? Because we do see a lot of scoring forwards there. Maybe is Stephen O'Brien a future Donncha Walsh? Does O'Brien have it in the legs to maybe, do what Walsh done over the years? Sean O'Shea. Now, I know that these are still only young lads. They've a long road to go for Kerry football, but it is vitally important that they do get that balance right, Conor.
Without a doubt, for the future, without a doubt, definitely is. But just look at the underage they had. They won 4 or 5 Irelands in a row there not that long ago. Like, so the production line is fairly working okay in Kerry. It's just a matter of getting them up that level, integrating them into the senior style of football and get them game time. So as agree perfectly what their boys are saying, exceptional stuff there, and it's just going to be interesting to see if Keane does go, who's going to come in now and spearhead all that. He has a massive job, whether it's Peter staying on or Newman, and they have a massive job to get everyone over the line and get going again. But as I said, the boys said there, like, the Ireland's up for grabs next year again. Like, there's no guarantees Dublin's going to win it again or Kerry's going to win it again. So it's all back to the drawing board again, probably in a fortnight or 3 weeks' time for most of the teams. So it'll be interesting to see how the appointment in Kerry goes, or what they're going to do actually in Kerry. Like, so massive sort of winter for them, massive winter for Kerry football for the next number of years, definitely is.
And we've seen this morning, obviously, Jack O'Connor saying, like, he fancied the Kerry job, but he's obviously still with the Kildare senior footballers as well, Conor. It's a big call. Obviously, Kildare probably preparation starts for the new year in a couple of months. So was it a bit maybe outlandish by Jack to maybe come out and say that so early on?
Maybe it could have been. I suppose I'm putting pressure on the Kerry management at present. Like, maybe it was a bit unfair in that, but I suppose he's planting the seed, and he's probably thinking about himself, and he's probably looking at the job again to get back in again. And there's probably, if you're a Kerry man, there's no bigger job to manage your county and to push them for a Ireland. So it's been to see how it all goes. Like, somebody mentioned earlier on about Paddy O'Shea, the Kerry supporters being dogs and all the rest. Like, so it'll be a tough job whether Peter stays on or a new man comes in. So, but again, it's from a Tyrone point of view, it's nice to see that sort of wee bit of fighting and Kerry, and they're more worried about themselves and getting things they got going than compared to their own. So it's nice to see a bit of unrest on the all big teams.
Yeah. Nothing ever changes, Connor. Nothing ever changes.
You're right.
And guys, obviously, moving on to that, like, you know, Jack O'Connor obviously coming out and saying that, but you know, we seen obviously at the top of the program we were talking about Pat Spillane and Sean Kavanagh having a bit of a tiff on RTE. I think Pat was going on about the COVID situation. Tyrone, they played it blind or everything that went with it. Comments on Pat Spillane's performance there on Saturday, guys?
Yeah, you could see a little from early on. I kind of watched it back a second time, and you could nearly see before the row started, Kavanagh had a bit of a sour puss on him straight away, and I think he was expecting. I'd say there must have been a bit of chat off camera before. Obviously, look, they probably are there a couple of hours earlier, and I'd say I'd say there's a bit of chat and there's a bit of slagging, and I'd say that we knew that was coming, you know, and Joanne Cantwell knew that was coming as well. But before I speak about that, just to go back to the earlier point, I know we were chatting just in the WhatsApp and stuff, you know, with the surprise down in Wicklow with Davy Burke leaving Wicklow, and now O'Connor coming out. So, you know, if Connor did leave the Kildare hot seat, you know, you might be thinking that Davy might step in there. You know, he's obviously an obvious successor there. I don't know what the scenario is in Wicklow, John, with all that, but there could be a bit of a merry-go-round. I don't know if O'Connor is just yet trying to get his nose in there now again to run for another All-Ireland. And maybe, you know, is he a little bit, I'm not claiming an All-Ireland winning manager's outdated, but would he be able to get the best out of that group, you know? But Spillane and Kavanagh, yeah, look, I don't know. Spillane, we know, has come out with that sort of stuff over the years, and he's always looking to kind of have a bit of a row with whoever he can with, and get the headlines going the next morning. And I think Kavanagh was kind of ready and waiting for him, if you know what I mean, because the minute Spillane opened his mouth, Kavanagh actually, you know, the way the three of them faced Cantwell, Kavanagh turned right around and started facing Spillane, and he hit him straight away. Wouldn't give Spillane a chance to get the word out, and I was actually happy to see it, because we all know when Spillane gets going, he can come out with some desperate stuff, you know, he comes out with some desperate shots. So look, as much as and then Kavanagh had the scowl on him for the rest of the show. He stood there with a scowl on him. So look, I actually enjoyed it, you know, because I think we're all a bit fed up with tuning in. You know, we keep criticising it, and you know, we'd all be on Twitter there giving out and stuff, but you know, because the old mundane analysis, they don't really analyse games properly in my eyes, and you know, we're always giving out about the old shite talk that's on it, but I enjoyed it all the same, and the bit of needle that was there was hard bet, because let's be fair, you know, if Dublin were going for 7 in a row, the only team that could stop them was Kerry, and that they were the two for the next 3 or 4 years in a lot of people's eyes. Now all of a sudden we're talking about Kerry being in crisis, we're talking about Desi Farrell, you know, being in, you know, what's going to happen there in Dublin. Dublin have a big winter ahead, as Connor rightly remarked. Kerry have a massive winter ahead. Now all of a sudden Tyrone and Mayo look to be the two new blossoming teams in Ireland. So all of a sudden it looked like a 2-horse race for the next 5-6 years, but now all of a sudden we've got the 2 boys in. So it's great. And it was great to see a bit of needle there, because you know, for the last 5 or 6 years, all we've been talking about is you'd have Colin O'Rourke there, another lad with a puss on his face, but he'd just be saying it's a foregone conclusion with the Dubs. So no, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the bit of crack, and it kind of it filtered onto the pitch. Then you could see there was lots of needle on the pitch, and I think that's what made the game. It kind of set us up nicely for a lovely game, you know.
It definitely did, guys. Spillane was just a man on a mission, though, because I've never seen a man get as irate. His blood pressure must have been through the absolute roof. He was just going absolutely bananas, and in fairness to Sean, he did keep his cool. It was a very, very heated debate. Did Pat have a point at all, guys?
You know what? Obviously, I don't want Conor Gormley to pull the head of me down to do her, but
watch what you say, guys.
No, I think there's a little bit there. I do think, you know, and I don't think it's Logan. I don't necessarily think it's Logan and Dooher. I don't think it should be management teams. I think, you know, maybe Tyrone County Board needs to maybe answer a couple of questions, but that would be obviously be behind closed doors with Croke Park. And I'm sure, look, all this stuff surely was provided at some point. I don't think Tyrone were writing letters to Croke Park saying, "Oh, this is it," and and Croke Park were taking that at face value. I'm sure they had to provide some sort of medical documentation, you know, proving obviously the COVID results and the amount that were affected. Because, you know, if we're to believe what we hear, and we do believe it, like up on 20 of the 35 squad members had some sort of effect from COVID. And, you know, I think Conor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think up until the week or 10 days before the match, they were getting maybe 12 or 13 lads out training. So look, there's no smoke without fire. There obviously was an issue there, but I do think, you know, you're looking back to Sligo last year, and I know people will say, here's the book from Leitrim cribbing and crying about the smaller counties, but at the same time, Sligo weren't given, and look, it was going to be a foregone conclusion that Mayo would have beaten them anyway, but, you know, they weren't really given any kind of respect last year when the same thing happened, and I think everybody just accepted it because it was Sligo. So I just think it's COVID, it's unprecedented, nobody knows the right or wrong answers for any of this, but I just think, you know, hopefully it's the end of COVID, but we're going to have to get some sort of a framework going forward. I think Spillane went a bit OTT, and I think you could sense that maybe he was a little bit worried about what was coming down the road from Tyrone. But he some of the points he made were valid, but he can never communicate them properly anyway. So it just came out like a load of crap. And I think Kavanagh, you know, the two of them kind of ended up going nowhere in the end with the argument. You know, it never really came to any sort of end point.
Bang on. Apparently, when numbers are low, Tyrone training, Conor joined in, so that's why he had to go. Can you confirm or deny, Conor?
I was going after this.
You're good in the water. John, Pat Spillane, how are you fixed for him?
Yeah, I think I enjoyed Gary's talking on there as much as him and Sean. Yeah, look, I think you just have to take Spillane with a pinch of salt. He's been doing it years. And it's time for RD just to kind of move away from it, because it's actually Sean Kavanagh was probably worse to get sucked in, and he did. His head was about to explode because he couldn't tolerate what he was saying. And like, we all know Spillane's going to throw us about, and he's going to say silly things and stupid things, and he's going to say, I have a stat for you, and just rattle off something that he probably read himself online or something that. It's a little bit silly. It's like the John Giles name of Dunphy when it's him and O'Rourke together. Like, so you just have to take him with a pinch of salt and kind of nearly question RTE more than anything and say, like, look, what are we trying to achieve here? Either entertainment levels or actual analysis. But look, he still gets the entertainment going. You get to get home that night after the game, and you get to lie down in bed and take out your phone and get a bit of entertainment and a laugh before bed. It's great. So you get good football and crack, like, but. Look, I just think you've taken with a pinch of salt. Whether he's right and wrong about what he's saying, I don't know. I don't think any of us are able to really talk too much about it, but take it all at face value.
Conor, back up Sean Kavanagh. What's your opinion of Sean's thoughts and nothing?
I just wish Joe Brawley had been on the show as well.
Yeah.
No, Sean, hey, he gave as good as he got, and as I said there, boys said there, just take out a pinch of salt, whatever they come out with. You just go with the flow, basically, you know. But it's good to see Sean biting back a bit. There's a few times over this last year or two, Sean really sort of stood back and let Pat rave away and not cut him off at all. But he tried to cut him off a few times and get his point across. You know, I thought it was exceptional viewing. It was great viewing, and as the boys said there, it was just great to set the tone for the game. Lovely, and we were just sitting back watching and laughing, hey, and you're just wondering what they're going to come out with next, you know. But it's great viewing. But the analysis part of it, like, is just basically is no analysis really. Just them two arguing the whole time. But it's great TV and someone different, and it was a good starting point for the weekend.
It definitely was. Well, to wrap it up, lads, Conor, who would have been your player of the match?
Player of the match, I go with Conor Meyler. I know Kieran got man on match RT, maybe in Skye as well, exceptional too. But Conor Meyler sort of been, been criticised maybe a bit for his play his last number of years. Maybe going across the field a lot and carrying the ball maybe too much. But just on Sunday, he got a job to do. Was exceptional in it. He really curtailed Buddy Clifford and what he done, and really stood out and got on ball as well. Just wasn't happy enough to mark him. He really put Paddy in the back foot by getting involved in the play and driving forward. So an exceptional performance from Conor Meyler, and he was my player of the match.
And what about yourself, Gaz? Who stood out for you?
Yeah, I said it earlier on. McGeary got it, and I wouldn't disagree with it, but I thought Myler was brilliant. He was someone for me that stood out. And then in different 10, 15-minute periods, we're nearly breaking it down in 4 quarters now with this water break that they still haven't gotten rid of. But, at different periods, Matty Donnelly, Peter Hart, who were quiet at times, stood up when they really needed them. So, there was a couple of different lads you could pick out, but I would have picked out Myler as well, just because I appreciate that role he was doing. And he's another one that John said earlier about McKenna. I think he's another lad that can play anywhere between 5 and 15, and he'll do a job for you. And he can, another lad that can kick scores as well. So he really put the head down and stuck to his task on Clifford. And although Clifford had a bit of an influence in the second half, I thought he snuffed him out. He snuffed him out really well. Myler did, yeah. So Myler would be mine as well.
What about yourself, John?
Yeah, coming with the forwards hat on me, I still like the McShane coming in. I think he was really impressive. Main off the bench, finish off a game like that was really incredible. And I give a lot of credit to Darren McCurry as well. Like he had a really off day, but to be able to turn it around, he kicked 2 frees when he needed, and he kicked 2 from play coming down the last stretch. And it's a hard job to do when you're having a very, very, very poor game. It's very hard to turn it around. So look, credit to the 2 boys, but without doubt, Myler was standout. He was incredible to stop. We've all been ranting and raving about Paddy Clifford for 6 months, and Myler just steps back into that role, and he wouldn't let him away. He wasn't even letting him get the ball in like a zone where it wasn't threatening. He just stopped him from getting the ball fully, and he was incredible. And then when he got the ball, the way he carries it, it's real nice to watch. Like, so he's just an all-round package, and he was standout player. But again, like, I would add in there Hampsey as well, like that, to keep Sean O'Shea so quiet as well, like in parts, who has been the best player in the country all year for me anyway. He did a savage job, but Myler was hands down best player in the park.
Yeah, so many good performances. I'd nearly give it to Ronan McNamee, but again, there was so many candidates for it. And lastly on it, the minor final took place before the game. It was Meath 112, Tyrone 111, and I know, Conor, obviously you were involved in the backroom team. It was heartbreak for Tyrone. The young fella missing the free at the end. A word on the minor final, Conor?
A high disappointing result first. You have to give credit to Meath, an exceptional team as well, and probably just about shaded it on the day. Tyrone had their chances, fell 3 behind, and brought it back to level. Meath went down then and got a good one ahead, and unfortunately, just Conor Owens missed a free at the end there, just to bring it extra time. But just very unfortunate. The lads been exceptional all year. They've really grown and developed as a team and individuals. So just slightly disappointing the way they finished the game out. Just a couple of rash shots and took on the wrong people and maybe shooting from different angles or from distance when they shouldn't have been working the ball a wee bit more, So, but again, they're just lads, they're only, some of them just turned 17, like, so young lads. But I suppose the key is to get the production line going, and hopefully them lads will progress on out till on the 20 teams and on the senior teams. That's what it's all about, really, But disappointing, but again, hopefully the future's bright for a lot of them lads.
Definitely. And I suppose it's a big thing for Meath football as well, because Meath football really has been in the dark for so many years, Conor.
That's true. Right enough, I suppose it'll be a massive boost for them. I think it's 1992, maybe. I think they won the last minor title, something like that. So they've been starved of silverware at that age for a long, long time. I think that's going to be 2 Leinsters in a row they've won, maybe. And to beat Dublin as well, like, would have been a massive boost for them. Again, there's some exceptional players as well, like up front as well. Finlay, I think it is, maybe corner forward there, an exceptional player. So the talent will be coming well in Meath, and credit to them as well. The credit to them. They've suffered down through the years as well. We've suffered at the hands of them at the senior level a lot as well. So again, it's great to see a county like Meath, great football and tradition they have down through the years, and it's good to see them back on up again. And they've ladies involved in an Ireland final as well on Sunday against Dublin, so they're a county on the up. So it's good for football overall to see that.
Well, apparently it lost because you weren't there, Conor. So you're all the same.
My fault.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff. Lads, that was a terrific chat, and what a game we had on Saturday. Roll on the final on the 11th. We cannot wait for it. Lads, thanks a million for joining me this week. And of course, this podcast is sponsored by OrgoRetro.com and Attack Sport. Use my promo code JMac Podcast to get 15% off on OrgoRetro.com and get the best skins, gloves and equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack-minded. Conor, Gaz, John, thanks a million.
Thanks,
Cheers, lads.
Good luck.
Cheers, boys.